Hey, what up, jerks? No fancy intro here. We get right into it. I'm sorry we're a few minutes late. That was all my bad. I was trying to juggle a bunch of things here. Realized we had the cleaners. I booked an earlier show today. Usually we do 6, but I did 5 tonight because I know there's a lot of big things happening on YouTube tonight that other people want to see that I also want to watch. So this is huge. I'm really excited about this interview. For people who aren't aware, there's a new Netflix movie out called Amy Bradley is Missing. And I just watched all 3 parts in one evening the other night. And I've been following the brother. I was aware of this situation when it happened back 27 years ago in 1998. And some updates since then. This is the woman that's missing, Amy Lynn Bradley. And the new series, it's good because it sheds light. It brings it up again. Her brother is on Twitter. He's posting quite a bit on Twitter. I saw some of his posts. He's providing a lot of information and education. We have it linked tonight, his Twitter. We have the website linked, and we also have the GoFundMe for the family. The family is looking to raise some more money right now. A lot of people have been contributing. We hope you'll be generous tonight and kick in and donate to the fund so the family can investigate, can spend more money and try to find out what happened to Amy. I know this family still has a lot of hope. Let's get it to it. We have a great guest tonight. Brad Bradley is here. He is the brother. He was in the on the cruise in 1998. He's in the movie. I'm really happy to bring him up. Make sure you follow him on Twitter as well. Brad, how you doing tonight?
And thanks for having me, Mike. I'm doing good.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. This is like a big movie right now, and everyone's wanting to help your family. How does it feel knowing so many people care about this right now?
A lot of people are probably going to hear me say some of the same things, after having done a few interviews and things. But it's really unexpected. We've done so many shows over the years. Not so much in recent years, but nothing like this has ever, taken place. Most of the things that we've done were, back when I'm not even sure Netflix was a thing, but if it was, you were still ordering discs, to your mailbox to watch movies. Flip phones, no smartphones, no social media. So it's a whole different world that this program came out in, and the outpouring of love and prayers and support and interest and people caring has just been one of the most meaningful things I've ever seen happen in my life. Of course, there's a lot of haters out there too. I got to be careful what I click on online. There's some nasty people saying some nasty things, and a lot of judgment on me and my family and that kind of thing, and opinions on what did or didn't happen. But you keep on doing what you can, and trying to raise awareness to obviously our focus is to find Amy if she's out there, and I I am smart enough to realize the chances are slim, but they're also not zero. So until we know any different, and it's been the same for 27 years, we take every opportunity to do everything we can to raise awareness and get her story out there and keep her name alive. And it's been pretty special. Netflix has pretty much single-handedly revitalized her name and her story and people's awareness of what happened.
Definitely, it's sad to hear that the family, and yourself are getting hate. Not surprised, knowing kind of what my show's been through the last couple of years. We have some haters too, but I'm really surprised that you have hate, like people harassing your family. Like I just don't, I can't understand that. That is just
And it's just the nature of human beings, man. I mean, it's nothing new to us. Our skin's grown pretty thick over the years. So a little bit more of it now, on social media, because again, that stuff wasn't around back then. But there's always been that side of it, and you just try to ignore it and stick with the people who got your back.
that's it. That's what matters. There's a lot more of them than
There is
the
for sure.
clown show. Yeah. Let's talk about this documentary because it came out. the 3-part series. It features you, it features your family, it also features some of these like the cruise director and this guy Yellow. Let's start with the cruise director because I felt like he came off very poorly in this. I almost wonder if it was like outtakes, like they talked to him for 6 hours, and because I can't imagine being that callous. Like he sounds, I could see in the moment maybe not wanting to stop the ship because you don't know what's going on when Amy is first missing. I get what he's trying to say there, but it just sounded very cold and callous, knowing at this point that it's been 27 years and your family still has no idea what happened to you don't know what happened to your sister. It's just like I felt like he was very cold. Did you feel like that? What do you feel about this cruise director that was on this Netflix? Amy Bradley is missing.
His lack of empathy and inability to read the room. I mean, to agree to do the show and to come off like he did. Obviously, there's editing, and I don't know how many hours of footage they filmed with him. Um, Regardless, I mean, he said all the things he said, no matter how they cut it up. So I don't know what the entirety of his interview was like, but uh, the message that he conveyed, however, was exactly what we experienced when we, that morning when we were asking them to lock the ship down and not let people off and stop everything and search everything. it was almost like, nah, can't be bothered to do that. We don't want to disturb everybody else's good time. So good luck with that. I mean, I think in fact he said, why don't y'all go look around a little more and come back again later if you still can't find her. So yeah, I didn't know the guy really before that interview came out. I mean, I'd forgotten about him, but I think he's fairly representative of how the people in that on that ship, felt about their passengers. I mean, couldn't be bothered.
For some people saying they didn't get to watch the Netflix series, they're wondering what he said. I think basically he said there's a lot of money on the line. I know that's he talked about the money, like
Well, he said we have 2,000 other paying customers that
yeah,
feed and entertain, and we're not going to stop the ship just because some girl went missing.
yeah, they paid a lot of money. Those people paid a lot of money, which I mean I can understand if they don't know because I in the heat of the moment, I mean, obviously, I would have wanted them to shut everything down. That would have been the best thing to do. But I'm sure people go missing all the time for a half hour, and then they find them, and it's no big deal. So they didn't know if this was going to be that type of situation. But for him to say those comments, I feel like decades later, it's like, dude, are
Yeah,
you serious? This is what you're saying? This is what you're saying right now. Knowing that this family still doesn't you still don't know where your sister is. You have no idea what happened to her. Just
I don't think.
I thought that was gross. I just couldn't believe he was saying that on television.
Yeah, not only did they not, agree to not let people off and do that kind of thing immediately, even at the end of the day, when we still hadn't found her, it was
Mm.
business as usual, and they took off on time. We got off on Curacao to sit in a hotel room and see if the searches in the water came up with anything, which of course they didn't. But yeah, I don't think he did himself any favors agreeing to do that interview. But
Definitely not the company either. I mean, it makes the company look terrible. Let's talk about this other guy, Yellow, they call him. He's Alistair. He's basically a bassist in the band. Acting very suspicious, like in terms of you showed a picture where he's covering up his face. He was the one last seen with her. You were around him that night. What do you want to see in terms of from him right now? Because it seems like you have some requests on him, don't you?
I mean, I don't know about requests on him. I guess I would say, grow a conscience and tell us what you know. Um, he came up to me first thing that morning after we had realized she was missing. And this was about 7 a.m. before any announcements had been made. And the first thing he said was, "I'm sorry to hear about your sister." I was sitting by myself by the pool, and he walked up and said just that. And at the time, I said, "Well, yeah, thank you." I wasn't thinking about how he would have known that already. So he asked me, he said, "Well, I left her at like 3:30, and she said she was going back to the room. When's the last time you saw her?" So I proceeded to start to give my timeline, and he interrupted me and said, "Hold on, I want my brother to hear this." So he walks about 50, 60 feet away to a group of guys over at another table who I assumed were members of the band or whatever, other crew. And he brings back one guy and he says, "Okay, go ahead and tell me what you were about to say." So I proceeded to give him my timeline, and I told him I went back to the balcony at 3:35, and she came in, a couple minutes later, and I went to sleep, and blah blah blah. But you know, in retrospect, it seems um, that maybe he was going to get that guy. Perhaps the other guy was involved, and they wanted to make sure they got their timeline straight from me if they were to be questioned. So in recent interviews, there's an interview on YouTube with a true crime guy that says that now he states he was back in his room at 1 a.m. The key card entry shows he went into his room at 3:35. So he's clearly lying, and you don't have to lie if you're telling the truth. I've said before, if you tell a lot of lies over the years, you better remember all of them. And I don't think he does. His own daughter, as you saw in the docuseries, she's not only was in the docuseries, but she's been online. There's a post going around on TikTok that says, she's in there just line after line after line, saying how it was hard for her to watch that interview. He's just lying. He didn't have any gay uncles. He knew everybody, people that smoked. He told multiple lies, not only about my sister being forced on the cruise by my dad, which is there's this utter BS. We were all very excited to go on the cruise. Amy and I, got our things together. We flew down together, separate from my parents, both very excited. There's no truth to any of that. So again, we know he's lying, has been. He's had a lot of years to rehearse his answers. And unfortunately, I think he's gotten mixed up on a few of them. So it's my opinion he should be re-questioned and re-polygraphed. I don't know how much the technology has advanced in the last 27 years with polygraph tests or AI or other things, but I think he's been off the hook for 27 years living his life, and I don't think that should have ever been the case. The two eyewitness girls that say they saw him, Crystal Roberts and Lori Rennick, I think they have different married names now, but anyway, they when my parents and I reboarded the ship, after we spent the night in Curacao, and they came to us and said that nothing in the water. They didn't believe she was there and didn't find anything. We flew back to get on the boat again, and efforts from some of my family members at home that had gotten the FBI involved, who I don't think would have been involved had we not pushed so hard. We got back on the boat. The cruise line's attorneys were standing front and center. They sat in on the FBI interviews that we did, which I'm not so sure is something that is proper. And everybody was interviewed. I forget where I was going with that, though. We said, buddy.
The story. I think one of the things I want to, because I do want to talk about the FBI, but before you mentioned the daughter of Yellow. Oh, go ahead. You want to say something else?
Yeah. So what I was getting at is more on Yellow. The FBI on that show says that there's no way for them to corroborate the girl's timeline. That say they saw her go up the elevator with Yellow at 5:30 to 6. I spoke with one of them today, and she confirmed that Amy was wearing, the same shorts and white top that she had on. She couldn't see her feet because of the way the elevator design was, but Anyway, they were adamant when we got back on the boat. My mom and I were kind of retracing Amy's potential steps early one morning, and those two girls ran up to us breathless, freaking out, saying they saw Amy go up the elevator. They're, recounting the story. The FBI never interviewed the girl's mother, who let them into the room after they came back following that sighting, to corroborate what time they were let into the room and why there's no key card data for when they came back. We spoke to her mother 2 nights ago, and she said, yeah, I let them in the room. No one has ever asked me about it. No FBI has ever questioned me about it. So I feel like the ball was dropped, in corroborating their story. And the girls felt like they were just treated like a couple of drunk teenagers that didn't know what they were talking about. So yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt your next point, but go
The
ahead.
FBI. That was the FBI.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, you talked about Yellow's daughter. I thought that was telling that his own daughter is very suspicious. And one of the things she said, and she did reach out to you, she opened up his bag and found a bunch of pictures of women, is what they said in the Netflix documentary. Did you ever hear about this? Did you
Oh,
when the family talked to her, like what were those pictures of? Were they people from the cruise? That's what I was thinking. Like, was it Amy? Was it some of the people on the cruise? Like, who
I
were the
believe,
pictures of?
I don't know whether the FBI followed up and actually investigated him as fully as they needed to, or saw what pictures he did have possession of. I don't know whether the portrayal in the series, when you open the suitcase and see the whole thing loaded with photos, is an accurate portrayal. It may have been. I don't know for a fact that the pictures included one of Amy. Although you might think Amy's formal pictures were missing when my mom and her went to find them. So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, Mika, I remember the day she called my mom and dad and left a voicemail, and expressed her concerns that her, dad was involved, and said his behavior changed quite significantly after he returned home from that trip. And I think they've spoken a number of times since, Amika and my mom, but I don't know when the last time was. But yeah, she clearly is calling him out for lying and being involved in what happened.
Is she afraid of him? I would wonder if she'd be afraid speaking out like that.
If so, I'd find it hard to believe she'd go on a worldwide series and you know put him on blast and call him on the phone. I mean, it doesn't seem like she's very much afraid. I don't know.
Yeah. Now there was this military, U.S. military guy who. This is what's wild is that there's been all these sightings of your sister that you don't know if it's really her from different people. There's even been some pictures. Do you mind if I share some of the pictures on the screen? I'm sure you've seen them a million times. Yeah. Um, yeah, I'm gonna show you, bring up one if I can. Here we go. Actually, that's the same one. Hold on. Oh, here it is. This one.
Yeah,
There's a bunch of photos that came off a website. Where where a lot of people think that there could be a trafficking angle on here on this, that she could still be alive. And there was this military, a guy in the military, U.S. military, who went to a hotel restaurant that it seemed like was a brothel, and he said that he claimed he saw Amy and talked to her. She told him her name. What do you think? Do you think this picture is her? And what do you think about those stories?
that one in particular. I mean, I see resemblance. That is not one of the ones that I have the strongest, feelings about. There are several pictures that, actually, two in particular, that it's like, man, that really does, look like her. And then that one, not quite as much in the cheek and the nose area. I know there are a couple of pictures where her tattoos, where she's positioned in such a way as, none of her tattoos would be showing. But there are other pictures that show areas that should have a tattoo on them but don't. I don't know how legit the photos are. I've heard, I don't know whether there was Photoshop back then. You see that one? Yeah, that picture right there. That was the one that was analyzed by the FBI, and they said that through their analysis, they did think that that was her. Um, this was probably, I believe, 7 years after her disappearance when we received these pictures. We were never able to figure out where they came from, or what place they came from, or who they came from. Um, we searched for years and years, and tried to set up meetings and appointments with, quote unquote, jazz. We're never able to find anywhere that, you know, that had that name. I don't know whether or not, I don't know what to say about him. I've always been kind of 50-50, 60-40 on him. I'm not 100% convinced, but you know that one again in particular, the forensic analysis and everything they did on all the different features, above my pay grade, but they were pretty convincing.
Is or your family has on GoFundMe that we have pinned in our chat. I hope people give to tonight. Can you tell us about that? Why you decided to do that right now?
But we didn't, a family friend of ours started that. It wasn't, our idea to do that. And this friend has been with us and working with us. My parents, have known the man well before this ever happened. And obviously he's been by our side ever since, and has been a tremendous, um, person to our family. My parents over the years, had to take out a second mortgage. They exhausted their savings and their retirement, and in all of our efforts to hire private investigators, and everything involved with that. And so, with the idea was, I suppose, with the new attention, and all of the calls and emails that would hopefully be generated by it, which has been thousands, by the way. We have a small team, and we're going through those as best we can. But if there's any expense or travel or attorneys or professionals or people that we need to pay, or things we need to do, or places we need to go, we don't have the finances to do it. And so if nothing comes from this, then I don't know. I don't know what you do with money in a GoFundMe. I'm not very familiar with it, but it's there just in case.
Donate.
Yeah, just
Yeah, I hope people donate. And maybe hire some private detectives too, right? Maybe because I mean, like you said, your family. I like you to talk about that because it was mentioned in the Netflix series. You said it. You said, I don't have any kids, and probably the reason I don't have any kids because I saw what happened to my parents with their daughter Amy. So how has this affected you, and how has this affected your family? And I hope people kick in as much as they can, and don't give more than you can give. If you can't afford to give, don't give. But if you can, kick in some money that GoFundMe. Brad, tell us how this has affected you and your family, please.
well, I mean, it's hard to explain. When this first happened in the early years, well, immediately it was horrific. I mean, watching my parents go through that as I was going through it at the same time was, you know, some of the hardest stuff that, obviously, the hardest stuff I've ever had, in my life. I spent a couple of years with a kind of a who gives a shit attitude about a lot of things. Like, in the grand scheme of, of things, who cares? What's the big deal? You know, not going to class, showing up late, paying them, parking tickets downtown and that kind of thing. And it ultimately affected me in a negative way. Uh, so one day I realized that, Amy wouldn't be very proud of my decision making at the time. So from that point, and this was probably, 2 or 3 years after this happened, I've made every decision, and we all have, in an effort to, every decision I make is, would Amy be proud of me for this? And I really haven't gone wrong since then. I don't think. My parents, they every day I talk to mom. She cries about it. It's a really sad thing, and it's hard to watch for so many years. And it took me a while to realize. Actually, I was talking to a buddy of mine outside our local volleyball club one night years back, and he, we're sitting outside, and he's like, "Hey, man, do you think the reason you never had kids was because of what happened to Amy?" And I was kind of like, you know what, I don't know that I've ever thought about it, but I think maybe maybe that is. So yeah, the emotions that I've witnessed, I don't want any part of. So yeah, that's a tough thing. You know, we've held on to hope. Obviously, I know a lot of people can't relate to that, and they think it's ridiculous. And again, we get back to the negative comments you see online. Um, uh, but the not knowing and the lack of closure has allowed for hope. If obviously if we knew something bad happened and we get that news and that's it, and you move on with the sadness. But the not knowing, I subscribe to that's the hardest part for a while, until I realized that was the only thing that allowed for that hope. So we've hung on to that when we've always had this unexplainable gut feeling, the three of us, that she's alive and she's out there. I don't know how to make sense of that to people, but we've all shared it. And our number one goal, I mean, of course, I go online and I answer people's questions and their curiosities. But the most important thing about all of this is, we need someone to come forward. Somebody knows something. Probably more than one person knows something. And 27 years is a long time to keep a secret. We'd hope that it's time to come forward and tell it. Either we find Amy, and if we can't find Amy and she's no longer with us, we find out what happened to her and who's responsible to hold them accountable. If we can't do any of that, at least we can shed light on the horrific human trafficking problem in the world, and do something and take steps to make some changes so that things like this, there's less of a chance it happens to other people's family members.
Yeah, I think you're onto something too. I think there's a reason to have faith on this. I do. I think you have to have faith. And
Either have faith or you give up. I mean, you have one or two.
yeah,
We're not giving up.
and you're not giving up for Amy. I mean, that's it. You're not giving up for. I can feel it. You're. I mean, I can't believe people give you crap because our chat, just seeing the comments, they love you and they know, like they're commending you on who you are now and even back then, because you were a leader on this. You were right up front for your sister. You've never given up for her. I know you said you had those moments when you know kind of didn't know a purpose, and you were kind of giving up, but it's obvious you really care. I mean, watching you on Twitter, just seeing what you're doing for your sister, it's you know we
That's,
love you, so you're incredible.
and
You're a good brother.
I appreciate it. It's not about me. I know she'd do the same thing for me if the roles were reversed. And we love Amy to death. And anybody out there that says, we cast any judgment on her or we didn't love her, just don't know us. And the ignorance is pretty obvious in those cases where people say things like that. But yeah, we all we can do is try as hard as we can. I mean, this is the first time in over 25 years where everybody is paying attention. And I was sitting on my couch, Wednesday or Thursday last week. The day. Well, I think it was Thursday, the day after this thing came out. And I said, I feel like I'm not doing everything I can do. So I decided to. I understood people were all paying attention and talking about it and things, and I saw a lot of misinformation that's still going on, unfortunately. But I've taken the last 5 or 6 days 12 to 14 hours a day facing my phone, trying to answer each and every person's questions as honestly as I can. And, I'm going to keep doing that. But again, I can do that until I'm blue in the face. But, the whole point of all of this is that, somebody's got to come forward. Somebody's got to tell us something. There's people out there that know what happened. If Yellow was involved, and my opinion is that he was, but if he isn't, and we find out that one day, I'll apologize to the ends of the earth to that guy. But I'm not so sure that's the case. So I think if she were trafficked and taken off that boat, he had help. I'd like to also address the assumption that I keep seeing over and over and over. Give it up, family. She fell off. She's gone. Or she jumped off and she's gone. And those two possibilities to us are pretty much zero. Amy was the life of the party. She came out as bisexual to us in 1995. I think a lot of people think that this was a revelation, like right before we went on this cruise for some reason, but it had been several years. Her girlfriends spent the night. Her boyfriends visited with our family. Her girlfriends went on vacation with us. Molly, the girl with the letter in the bottle, was over my mom and dad's house with all of us last Easter. Not this past April, the one before. We had good relationships with all of them. There was none of this crap of what you see about, my parents being overly religious. I mean, the only time we ever went to church in my life was if we were visiting my grandparents. We didn't grow up in an overly religious household. There was, no truth to that. I never gave a crap about what Amy did. I mean, I was happy. I loved her. I liked her boyfriends. I liked her girlfriends. I never had any bit of issue with it. My parents, obviously, I would say it's a fair statement to say that not many parents out there would choose that lifestyle, especially back in the 90s for their child. I think they were initially disappointed, but soon thereafter, nobody gave a crap about it. That whole thing, I think, needs to be dispelled. No truth to it. I mean, the day before we were on Aruba, and we're in the water. Apparently, per Yellow's suggestion, my dad forced her on the boat, and she's hanging on my dad's back for half hour, 40 minutes while we're in the surf playing on Aruba, having a time of our lives. She was a very happy person, despite the opinions of a handful of, especially one notable disgruntled ex on the series who, I feel like had an axe to grind for whatever reason. Amy had just graduated college. She had just gotten a brand new apartment. She had had a job, had just about to start a new job with my uncle's computer company, just got a baby English bulldog that she had wanted her whole life. She was buying postcards and sending them to her friends about plans when she got home. She was buying gifts and taking pictures for a collage on her coffee table and a photography contest when she returned. She had no intention of not coming home. So the jumped off thing is zero.
Yeah.
Now for her to
On
fall,
vacation too. Like
yeah,
if you're you don't do that on vacation on a cruise, when you're
we're,
having the time of your life.
we're in the casino, we're eating great
Yeah,
food, we're having drinks, we're listening to music, we're dancing, and
exactly.
she was not struggling with who she is. She was a very strong individual. Um,
And
none
she
of
was a great athlete too, wasn't she?
oh, absolutely. We both grew up on the swim team. 15, 16 years of it. She was a lifeguard. She was a swim coach. She started on the girls' varsity high school basketball team as a freshman. She was the first female at Longwood University to get a full basketball scholarship. She was really talented. So the fall off of the boat part of thing, obviously everybody on the ship is drinking alcohol. Her bar tab shows 6 light beers from 6 p.m. on.
Yeah,
Of
that's
course,
not much. That's one drink an hour. Your body clears it out. So I mean, that's
grab
a buzz, not a especially a young person drinking a lot. Like for me, maybe 50 plus, where I don't drink anymore, it might knock me on my butt, but not her. I mean, it's from 6 to 3 a.m. Come on, that's nothing, right?
night we got on the boat. We're on the eighth deck, so we're way up over the water. And I walk out on when we first get into our room, and I lean over the rail and I'm looking straight down to the water, and I'm like, "Oh my God, Amy, come look at this!" And she said, "Nope," and stayed back towards the door. She would never approach the rail in the first several days. Um, people suggest she climbed on a table, and first of all, that table was flimsy, is not going to hold a human being on it. Second of all, she's tall enough at 5'6" to puke over a rail without climbing on something. My personal opinion is if she was going to be sick, she would have come back into the room instead of leaning over the rail that she wouldn't go near. So my our opinion is, and the evidence, from eyewitnesses and so forth, the shirt she fell asleep in on the chair when I went inside was inside the room. The door that I closed was open when we woke up. Um, her car key was never accounted for. The two eyewitnesses that saw her go up the elevator with Yellow. We've since learned that there were other girls on the same boat on. Um,
She
uh,
posted some receipts on that, which was really interesting. That wasn't mentioned in the movie at all.
no, and there's girls saying that Yellow had asked them to meet him on the pool deck at 6 a.m.
A
Um,
different girl,
different girl.
right? A different girl. Was it weeks before, actually? Like just a few weeks before this happened, right?
So I think we're talking about two different things. The
Okay.
that warning, alert stay
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
my page. That was something we only found after we returned back to our home after leaving St. Thomas. And that report had been filed 2 weeks prior to our cruise, or 2.5 weeks.
Mm.
The
Yeah,
stuff,
about the same guy trying
yeah,
to do the same thing to lure someone out at 6 a.m.
that
And then and then they had conversation after Amy went missing, right?
well, no. So that alert did not say anything about him asking people to meet him at 6 a.m. It just says,
Okay.
stay away from this guy. He's aggressive, yada, yada. The newest stuff that I'm seeing online from people posting different stories is that there are girls claiming, and there's a security officer's report, I think, that says that these other girls were saying that Yellow had asked them to meet them at 6 o'clock in the morning on the pool deck. So we maintain that she left the room. Obviously there's no record of it leaving since she opened it from the inside. I don't know why she would have gone to go meet him. That's all conjecture. We can speculate forever. So I don't
Could
know.
Let me ask you this: could she been out of cigarettes? Like, what? How do the cigarettes work? Because I think she was a
Yeah,
smoker. Like, and I know how that works. Sometimes when you first thing in the morning, you're like, "Oh, I need cigarettes." Like,
coffee.
where do you get the cigarettes? Do you bring them with you in that case? Do you even know how she handled the cigarette situation?
I mean, we were both smoking cigarettes, and I think maybe I was just bumming hers, but you know,
Okay.
kept them in her pocket. They were unaccounted for. I think there was an extra lighter in the room, but we had a few. So yeah,
Do
if
you
she
think she was buying them on the boat? Like I'm just wondering if she brought her cigarettes with her. Like, because that's always. I
no,
just wonder maybe that's why she went out. Is there a store where you buy them on the boat?
yeah, I think you can. I don't know for a fact that's the case, or whether you had to get them from the duty free store in San Juan
Exactly. Yeah.
left. I'm not quite sure about that, so I don't want to make anything
Okay.
up. But I don't know. She went out for some reason. We think, and those girls saw her go up there to the disco. We know that there's a crew elevator in the back of the disco that goes straight down to crew quarters.
Is
And
that's what I was wondering, that because that didn't get answered in the movie too. There's a lot of things left out. So if you go up that elevator, it leads to the disco, but it also leads to an elevator
yeah,
that goes to the crew quarters.
yeah. And so, if he had someone, obviously the girls say Yellow came back out and was walking alone at that point. Um, but if he had met somebody up there and had other people working, if they had some sort of track
Plan.
operation or some sort of whatever, he could have handed her off, and then they take her down. there's a clip, famous clip now of Yellow in that most recent interview he did, where he slips and says, when I got back to my room, he says "we" twice. Um, so I don't know whether that's just you know slip of the tongue, or whether he was revealing something there, but I think that that's what happened, and I don't know what happened from there. It's all speculation from that point. But for the I think the first polygraph he did was inconclusive. I've heard differing reports where the FBI say that he then passed a secondary polygraph, and then I've heard a lot of back and forth about no, there's actually no proof that he quote unquote passed it. So I don't know what to tell you on that. I know that polygraphs aren't admissible in court, and I think people who have sociopathic tendencies or lack of conscience may not
Can
have
beat him.
pass in a polygraph if they're used to.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. They can totally beat them. It seems like some people have those skills. What is about the FBI today? Like, where is it open even? Do you have any idea if they're even looking into this? And if not, what do you want them to do?
Well, I want them to do their job. My mom had a conversation with Aaron Sheridan the other night, who, again, on the series, her opinion is that Amy didn't jump off the boat, didn't commit suicide. In a recent conversation, Agent Sheridan shared with my mom that, again, there's no way to corroborate the girl's story, although she never spoke to the mother who would corroborate it. She says there's no evidence that Amy left the room. And my mom turned right back around and said, well, there's no evidence she didn't, except for the two eyewitnesses that saw her go up the elevator with Yellow. And I can tell you, the look on those girls' faces when they came running up to me and my mom a couple of days later when we reboarded, they weren't unsure. I think they know what they saw. They've maintained that for 27 years. They've been adamant about it. And yet, Yellow's walked free for the last 27. So, I think we're trying to, there's a change.org petition. There's two of them actually out there. And I hope I successfully linked those to my page. If I haven't,
On your Twitter?
but one of them is petitioning the president's administration and the new DOJ and FBI to provide resources and reinvestigate, with all of this information revisited and come to light with new technologies and so forth. So we're working on that. We're trying to get it in front of President Trump. And in my opinion, a lot of people like to slam me and call me a homophobe and a racist for being a Trump supporter. I don't know what to tell you, man. My opinion is the guy gets things done, and I hope it gets in front of him. On the other change.org petition, there's one for mandating quote unquote Amy alerts, somewhat like an Amber Alert for missing children on all cruise ships. And I think that is, I don't know who came up with that. I saw it on TikTok and it came my way, and it's a fantastic idea. I don't know how the hell it's never been instituted before. So, there's those two things out there that we're
We
hoping.
get it done. Let's get it done. Amy Alert. I like that. That on the cruise ships. I mean, that should have happened, and that could be like the one blessing out of this. Change some laws, investigate this. I hope the FBI does pick this up and look much more into this because it seems like there's much more here. There's been some other questions that have come up too tonight. One of them is about the Scientology angle because that didn't come up in the movie theater. In the movie on the Netflix, I say the theater, in the Netflix. I'm dating myself. People still go to the theater, I guess.
Yeah.
But this is on Netflix. But it didn't come up in the Netflix. And someone just brought this up. Boston Brandy says, "Was there a Scientology ship docked adjacent to the cruiser? I believe it's called the Trade Winds or the Fair Winds, something like that.
Free
Or
wins.
is that a TikTok rumor What's going on with the Scientology angle? Because I've been hearing different things now. I think there's something to that. I'm interested. What do you think?
Well, I mean, this is something that has that I've been talking about since day one. I've spoken to every news organization and every media outlet we've ever done about this side of the story, and no one has ever reported it. There's people online accusing me of like, oh, all of a sudden the brother remembers this and that, and I've been talking about this forever, and no one has been willing to touch it. And I guess I assumed over the years that Scientology, I think, maybe previously had been known as a fairly litigious organization and would come after people, and people were scared to say the name. But I took the opportunity on X to tell the story, that part of the story, because again, in my Netflix interview, I spoke about it for as long as I'm going to speak about it to you now, and I made it known that no one's ever been willing to talk about it, and I asked that it be talked about, and again, it was excluded. But the night before Amy disappeared, she was talking to these two black ladies that were wearing matching uniforms. They weren't passengers. They were not matching any other uniforms on the ship that I had seen. They were standing off to the side during the pool party along a wall next to the bar, where all the tables and chairs where everybody was eating and drinking and sitting and talking and all that stuff. Amy stood over there with these two ladies. The ladies had their backs to the wall, and they're over there talking and chatting it up, and you can see them being, fairly animated and having a good conversation. And at one point, I'm standing with my parents about 50 feet away, and we're like, "Who the heck is she talking to? Like, this is a party. My parents' coworkers are here, our friends are here, having a good time, and she's kind of stuck in the conversation." So eventually, it came time for my parents to decide they were going to go to bed. So they walked over to them, and they say, "Hey, Amy, we're going to go to bed. We'll see you tomorrow. We love you." The ladies didn't introduce themselves, didn't speak, just kind of put up this wall when they walked over. So Amy's like, "Okay, love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow." And so they continued to talk for a period of time, and I'm on the dance floor and doing whatever out there at the pool party before everybody went up to the dance club. All right, so there's that piece of the story. The uniforms were longer, dark navy skirts. I presume they were navy, possibly black. I don't know. I think navy with lighter blue Oxford button-up shirts. All right, fast forward. The next morning we find out she's not in the room. All right, so we go up, we go through the day, we go through all this and that. We get off the boat at the end of the day after the ship's captain assured us that a proper search had been done, which we later found was not the case. Apparently the crew searched their own quarters, which I don't know how much sense that makes. And they searched basically public areas and bathrooms. The quote we were told was they searched everything as small as a bread box, kind of like a bomb search, but later found that not to be true. I digress. We got off the boat because they said, "Hey, if Amy's found in the water, you guys are going to want to be here." So we get off on Curacao. President of my dad's company and his wife accompanied us because we were in no shape to handle anything. We were a basket case, all three of us. And so they were, kind enough to stop their trip, get us a hotel room, kind of get us set up. We're in the hotel room. It's a terrible scene. And Dad's throwing up, and to the extent there's blood in it, and mom's in a fetal position on the bed, and we're consoling each other, and their mom and dad are holding each. It's just awful. So mom requests a priest finally. And she contacts the president of my dad's company, who's staying in another room in the same place, and asks if he wouldn't mind helping facilitate finding one to come, be with the family and pray with us or whatever. They called around whoever it was, the U.S. consulate or, Mr. McCord himself, and weren't able to find one. So Mike McCord called us back and he said, we weren't able to find a priest. I'm sorry. So around midnight, there was a knock on the door, and we opened the door, and it's these two men and two white guys in like full kind of naval attire. They had on the whites and
Sea Org uniforms.
had introduced themselves from the Sea Org, the ship, the Free Winds, which is headquartered in Curacao. You later find out that boat goes from Aruba to Curacao to Barbados and back and forth and back and forth. And that's kind of where that boat goes, headquartered in Curacao. So they come into the room, they explain to us that they have various methods to help counsel with and assist with families grieving loss. So we said, okay, please help us. So they went through this first. I don't remember the whole thing, like a video, but I remember things very specifically. There was one verbal exercise they had us do, and I don't know whether this is part of like an auditing process or I've learned a little bit about Scientology, but they had us all each separately repeat, now that you've lost Amy, tell us something you haven't lost. So we'd say, okay, now that we've lost Amy, we haven't lost each other, and we haven't lost our family and our friends at home, and we haven't lost this and that. And that went on for a period of time. The interview, I'll call it, shifted to them wanting to know very specific things about Amy. And of course, they call it some kind of term or process, but they said, did Amy smoke cigarettes? And we say yes. And what were her favorite cigarettes? We say Marlboro Light. Did Amy drink alcohol? We say yes, she liked to drink beer. And they say, what's her favorite beer? We say Miller Lite. And then we go through this. What are her favorite snacks? All these things that are really specific pieces of information about her. At the time, I guess we, kind of acquiesced to this was some sort of way to deal with our grief. So we went along with it. The third thing they did was lay us down on the bed and face down and kind of put hands on our back, and we're rubbing your back and everything. And I think what I've learned, if the term is correct, it's called the nerve assist or some type of thing to calm people and that kind of thing. At that point, my dad said, look, guys, thank you for coming here, but you guys, you guys got to go. They did invite us on the ship, the Free Winds. We declined. We were in no shape to want to do anything like that. And we were, after having talked to family about the FBI boarding the ship, we were interested to get back on that boat. So my theory that I put up on X that no one's ever been willing to talk about was that perhaps those two black ladies Amy was talking to got on the boat with this entourage of performers that had gotten on the afternoon or the evening before when we left Aruba. Perhaps they were Sea Org recruiters. I think it's possible that they coerced Amy or convinced her to meet them to go visit the Free Winds. And if that were the case and she were not able to get off, if you go researching into Scientology and people having to escape and being held in isolation in these terrible work camp conditions and those kind of things, it's always bothered me. I've never been able to get anybody to talk about it or look into it. The FBI has largely been dismissive of the theory. And they're like, yeah, we looked at that. There's nothing there. And it's never satisfied, us. And we don't think that it was looked into properly enough. Because of me bringing that to the X platform, I was able to get in touch with Aaron Levin Smith. I was able to get in touch with Tony Ortega. I was able to get in touch with Claire Headley, who apparently, I guess her husband's name was Mark, and they were above Mike Render, who used to be kind of top level of the Sea Org. And my mom has had a long conversation with Yaleska Paris, who escaped from them. Claire Headley was on that ship, and I think Yaleska Paris was as well during that time frame. Each one of those four people put my concerns, I'll say, mostly to rest. They all agreed that it was extremely unlikely scenario that Sea Org was the highest order. There was really no history of them kidnapping people that weren't already involved in Scientology to go on that ship. Um, the girls that were on that ship say they don't have any, they never saw Amy. They never have any recollection of hearing anything about it. So, I don't know who to trust or who to believe or who's in on what or who's covering for who, but that talking to those people at least finally gave me, some sort of peace of mind about it. So that was what that whole thing is. And, I don't know that it's 100% out of my mind, but,
Exactly. How
but
can it be?
if that were the case, um, that kind of dispels every single other piece of evidence that we have in this case. And so, I've kind of tucked that in, and I feel a lot better about it after spending 27 years being frustrated that no one was willing to do anything to talk about it. So that happened.
At least you got that conversation with some of these people. I don't know if I really trust them either.
Well,
I have this woman that I follow named Dana. She's like, she exposed a lot of the stuff of the Scientology, especially, the Sea Org is like the most militant part of Scientology. It's like where the worst stuff happens. So, um, but who knows? She always says, I think Dana says a lot of those folks they hate David Miscavige more than they hate Scientology. That
right.
it's more about the leader. If they had different leadership, they'd probably still be Scientologists. I don't know if that's true with those folks, but I'd still be skeptical. But I'm glad that they're talking to you. I'm glad that you at least got some
Like
kind of progress on it. That's what you want, right? You want to keep it going and to find out more information. So it's good that they're talking to you. I'm glad they're speaking to you on it.
they seem to be sincere, but like you say, there's a lot of people online. They're like, yeah, I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
Their word for it.
How do you know? That's the thing with all this stuff. How do you really know? Yeah, it's been tough for your family. It's just been since it was March 1998, right? Is that when this happened?
Yeah, March 24th, 1998. Yeah.
Yeah, you remember the exact date. I mean, that's it's a day that changed your life. I mean, this is
Yeah.
I'm frustrated to hear that people give you crap, your family. Like, it's
It's
you're
it's
still fighting this 27 years later and people giving you shit for it. Like, come on.
I don't want to sound hokey about it, but and again, I do believe in God, and I'm not an overly religious person. Um, I do pray, and I have kind of a personal relationship. I don't attend church and that kind of thing, but it's almost apparent that there's kind of a good and evil going on in the social media universe. You click on
Mm.
some people's pages, and it's all hearts and prayers and really, really, really nice sentiments and all this stuff, and then just the nastiest of the nasty,
Negative.
like covered in another person's page. It's like water seeks its own level. The either one page is like all good with maybe one thing mixed in, or it's like all people just talking trash. So it's interesting to see the dichotomy of the two different sides of people in the world.
I hope the FBI takes another look at this. I don't know why they're not, especially with the stuff that we're finding out about this Alistair guy. It's pretty obvious that they should probably go have another conversation with him, right?
Yeah, I would request that they do. I've largely felt for a lot of years they've been sitting on their hands, and the one statement that was made to us the other night that, well, Mrs. Bradley, we don't have any evidence she left the room. So to me, that sounds like, so we're not going to do anything because she either fell or she jumped over.
Mm.
And then my mom said, "Excuse me, you don't have any evidence that she didn't." But oh yeah, you do actually. You have these two very credible eyewitnesses that are adamant about what they saw, yet you failed to interview the mother to corroborate their story. Um, and that's gone on for 27 years. So yeah, I hope they do something. I hope the investigation is reinvigorated. Whether we need new agents on the case from Trump's FBI or Patel or Bongino or whoever. We're asking for help because I don't feel like we've been helped to the extent that we deserve or Amy deserves. And again, this isn't about us, meaning me and my parents. It's about the injustices that were done to Amy. Um, not only by how her disappearance was handled in the early hours and days, but how it's been mishandled over the last 27 years. It's a supremely frustrating thing to experience, and I'm just glad this, what happened to our family, you don't hear about all the time. But like I said, in the end, if we're unable to find Amy, and nothing comes of this series, and we can't get anything done about Yellow or about anything else, hopefully this will, because of the amount of caring that is going on right now, and everybody kind of paying attention and being interested and banding together to affect some type of change in the human trafficking um, arena. It's got to happen. And we can't let it go on like the supposed war on drugs and the cartels that's gone on my entire lifetime. It just cannot be allowed to continue. And I know you're not going to eradicate all of it. There's a lot of bad people out there, and you can't catch them all. But there are, certainly things that can be done to lessen it and to affect some positive change.
Definitely. Some folks are in the chat are recommended some people that you talk to, ex FBI folks. Sometimes we have some ex FBI on here. I think that might be a good idea in the future to maybe have them on with you, maybe Brad, and maybe they can give you some advice too. And maybe they can help. Maybe they can call some of their old contacts. I got one Brett. I got one Rob D'Amico. He's awesome. He's a great guy. I'm sure he'd want to talk to you about this as well. Maybe we can do that in the future.
I would encourage anybody that's willing to help or come forward, to be a part of the team, to contact our team at Amy Bradley is missing at gmail.com. If anyone has any tips out there, either that email or the telephone tip line 804-789 for Amy, which is 789-4269. And again, the GoFundMe and the petition regarding the Amy alerts, the petition regarding, trying to get the administration's help with reinvigorating focus on finding justice for Amy. That's what we're looking for. And obviously, first and foremost, I'd be remiss, obviously, we implore anyone that knows anything or knows anybody that knows anything to come forward, tell us what you know and get this thing over with. I mean, it's been far too long. My mom made a comment in the series that nobody can keep a secret forever. Well, they're working on it. I'm hoping that's a true statement, and again, someone knows something, someone's got to say something, is the bottom line. I can answer people's questions till I'm blue in the face, but I can't make anyone forward.
Yeah, we need someone to come forward. That's a big thing. If you know something, or if you know somebody that knows something, get them to come forward. I have a couple questions for my mods. They're big into this. They've been looking into this. Sarah had a question. She said there was a post on the Amy Bradley website from March 14th, 2025 that talks about possible involvement of Herman Gay Goilo,
Boilo.
retired police officer in Curacao. Are there any updates on that? And can you talk about the names that popped up in this case and the Natalie Holloway case related to possible trafficking? Link to post. Amy Lynn Bradley is still missing. There's also Natalie Holloway was, last seen at Carlos and Charlie's. Your sister was invited there by some of the guys from the ship, some of the waiters, I believe, the wait staff. What's going on with that? Like, to answer Sarah's question, but also your family has talked to the Holloway family. Is that correct? And do they think there's any crossover here?
Well, we suspect there's some sort of you know organized something in there where they spike girls' drinks and do whatever. Yeah, we've been in contact with Beth Holloway over the years. We actually did one of her. She produced a show called Vanished that we did a program on a number of years ago. Um, the waiter at our table, his name was Eduardo Cabrita, and he was um, paid a lot of close attention to Amy. And again, in the series, you hear me kind of jokingly say that we're all at the table. It was quite obvious that if we needed anything, just tell the guy Amy wanted it, and it would be back right away. He later found my mom and asked her if she knew where Amy was, and she's like, "Why?" He was like, "Well, we want to take her to a bar on the island." And when my mom later talked to Amy, she was like, "No way, I'm not going on there." But what would have happened had they got her in that bar? You don't know. I missed that. You kind of prefaced your several questions.
Yeah, there was this police officer that post about Curacao,
Yeah,
uh, about that post about Herman Golo,
yeah,
retired police officer in Curacao, and she wanted to know if there was any updates on that, and can you talk about the names that popped up in the case? If there's any other names that are kind of been brought up, especially in law enforcement.
yeah. Well, the Herman Goylo guy, there was I think he claims that, as recently as just a couple years ago, he knew where Amy was. He claimed to be a police officer, but later we found out after sending investigators down to the island as recently as this past November, um, that he was a clerk in the office of the police, not a police officer himself. Um, don't know how trustworthy the guy is. He claims that she's being held by this, rich and powerful family, and there's a ton of information. If you want to, get all the details that are available right now, and some of it, I may not be able to speak on currently, but the amybradleysmissing.com website, pretty sure there's a folder you can click on with, all the information relative to him and other sightings and all the different pieces and parts to this we put together over the years.
He became an ordained minister in 2023, according to the website. Do you know if he's still part of the church?
I think so. I mean, if you look up the website, I don't know. It's some church in the Nazarene or something. I don't know in Grenada, but he's a reverend there. He's changed his name to Christopher Douglas. I don't know whether just as to get away from the Alistair thing that's been chasing him for 27 years. But I've heard he practices exorcisms and is in the church. I don't know. I can't prove. I don't know for a fact that's true. That's just some things I've heard along the way from some of our investigators that is the case. And I remember I found Yellow years ago online, and it struck me that I felt as though his change in lifestyle was fairly repentant, possibly for things he had done earlier in his life. But I don't know. Like you said, I think he needs to be revisited and re-questioned and say, okay, let's put you on a polygraph. Yellow, what time were you back in the room? And he'll say 1 a.m. Okay, you passed. All right, here's the evidence that you were in your room at 3:35, not 1 a.m. And kind of go that route. And again, I think there's hopefully newer technologies that can. One person came to me on TikTok saying that there's an AI program you can run people's interviews through to detect speech patterns and eye movements and different things that can suggest they're being untruthful. So I know there's a lot of that stuff. I think he's gotten away with. I don't want to say murder. He's gotten away with something for 27 years.
Yeah, and
Um,
I'd say if he's watching, come clean. If
yeah,
if you if he's feeling guilty, like Yellow, sir, the only way to you got to come clean. Like the only way to get rid of that, there's some kind of. I think you're right. I think there's some guilt there, and
Yeah, and
the
if
only way for him to come is to tell the truth.
he truly is a religious man, I hope he understands God's watching him. And it's time to do the right thing, and put an end to this, and let us know what happened. Let us know, if Amy's still out there, what who who's involved, all that kind of thing. But you know, back to basics. Somebody knows something. We're hoping, against all hope, that someone comes forward and says something and gives us the piece of information or the pieces of information we need, um, to make something happen, and find Amy or get justice for her.
The website. One of the things that you noted too. Another thing on the internet was you were noting around certain birthdays and holidays, you get a spike in traffic from certain areas.
Yeah. Now we have basically regions, kind of geographic areas where the IP data is located. But no specific neighborhood, no specific address. We've not been able to, with the technology that we have access to, apparently narrow it down to a physical address. Um, I don't know. I was a little bit felt some kind of way about that information coming out on the show in the first place. If someone was unaware that, let's say Amy still has captors, or,
Yes.
something like that, and
Yeah.
they doubt, oh, every time she's on the computer she can be tracked. They put an end to that. We lose that piece. So I'm not sure, if the computer team isn't, because I've asked for the latest information. When was the most recent? Because everybody's asking, and it's not been provided to me yet. If it's something that the team will allow me to provide, or if it, is determined that it's not a good idea to share what we know, I don't know how that's going to go. I know a lot of people are interested in that, and I can only tell you what I can tell you. That information, as far as I understand, went back to last year. But so, if that's her looking at family photos for 20, 30, 40 minutes at a time on special days, I find it hard to believe that's someone else. Probably as hard to believe as other people think she's still alive. I can admit the being realistic and understanding the odds are pretty damn slim. But again, they're not zero, and our gut feeling remains. So we're not gonna quit trying as hard as we can until we have a reason to.
Got no quit, and I can see it's in your family as well. You're not quitting, and I'd say go with your gut. You got to trust your gut on this, and you know better than anybody on this, anybody else. So I'd just stick with that. Yeah, We didn't bring up this guy. There's another guy, the man in the cabin next door.
Yeah.
You have interactions with him as well.
I had very limited interactions. I remember on the first day or so, we were out on the balcony at the same time, and I'm leaning on the rail, he's leaning on the rail. We're kind of just, passing small talk. I did understand that he was an employee actually in my dad's company that had also qualified for tickets to come on the cruise. Um, I hate to call the guy out unnecessarily. He's kind of a strange guy, self-admitted loner. Been on, every cruise he goes on, he goes by himself. His name's Wayne Breitag. We later found had been involved in smuggling exotic animals in the past. So perhaps there was some connection with that. Um, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. He's definitely a strange character, but him saying something about climbing around the rail and that kind of thing. That absolutely, there's no way in hell that happened. Again, Amy wouldn't even lean on the rail. She's not going to climb around it. So there's people talking about that
Too, like
those
if
parts.
she had fallen too, she would have screamed, and someone would have seen it or heard it. I think too. Like
Yeah,
people would have seen it on their balconies. Like
early in the
so.
morning, get ready to go off on the island. I mean, there's It wasn't in the middle of the night. We weren't in the middle of the ocean. We
Yeah.
were there at the island. The sun was coming up. Um, if she's going to lean over the rail and puke, there'd be puke on our balcony, on the rail, on the glass, on anyone's balcony below us. Nowhere was it found. I don't think that happened. So, I don't know what else to tell people about the reasons why we feel the way we do. And despite anybody's opinion, it's not going to change ours.
You definitely don't need to answer to them. That's for sure. I'd say the one last thing tonight. Anybody, I know obviously your mom and dad. Who do you want to thank for this? Because I feel like you've mentioned you have a team behind you. I know you have some volunteers. Are there people you want to mention or thank in this long, it's been a lot of years here that you've been fighting for Amy. I'm sure there's people you want to thank.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, everybody in our family, our set of friends, the community, every single person that's ever reached out to us to, share their thoughts or their prayers or put an arm around us or give us a hug. That's baseline. Thank you all. Anybody that's ever tried to help us or deliver a tip, right or wrong, the interest that it takes for someone to spend their time, to try to make sure that information gets to the family is always, has been the most valuable thing to us over the years. We sit for months and years at a time with nothing, and then we'll go on short roller coaster rides where our hopes are up and then they're dashed again. So everybody that's ever come forward, everybody that was involved in this Netflix project, Bo Carson is a guy that we know out in California who introduced us to Ari Mark and Phil Lott, the producers for this program. Without him, I don't know that this ever would have happened. And the producers themselves, I think they did an amazing job with the series. I don't want to, throw any shade Netflix's way. Me coming out with this other information that wasn't included. I mean, the series would have had to been 5 seasons to capture everything. So to be fair, it's kind of impossible to do that. And I think they were trying to be concise and not do all these random, make people think, well, these people don't know what the hell's going on. There's things everywhere. So we think they did an awesome job. I've said many times that they single-handedly revitalized Amy's name around the world, Amy's story, people's interest in her case. And without them, we wouldn't have any of it. So huge thanks goes out to all those guys, not only the producers, but Netflix for, agreeing to do the project with them. And then, the outpouring from around the world. Again, not only from here locally, but, I'm getting things from South Africa and all over the Middle East and UK and Australia and Ireland and Scotland. It's just crazy how many people have reached out just to say they're thinking about us and they're wishing good things for us and they're praying for us. I can't, thank you isn't enough. I mean, it's been, again, the most heartening thing. I've said this a number of times. I'm going to sound like I'm reading from a script, but truly, most heartening thing I've ever been a part of. Hopefully, it will result in a positive outcome.
We're sending new people to you too, as well on Twitter. We put your links in the chat. We just pinned it again. Every time I take off my glasses, I'm pinning something else in the chat for people to follow. We want to make sure you follow all those links tonight. There's a fundraiser for the family. There's the website. There's the email that you can send tips. And also, Brad is on Twitter. I hope people follow you on Twitter tonight and pick up. I know you get a lot of followers. I've been following all your posts, Brad. I said one last question, but this is the final one. You've been on I know you're on our show tonight. I saw one of the Barstool sports hosts saying that you were on their show today as well, or they recorded something. Are you doing other shows? Are there anything you want to promote that's upcoming? The episodes on other shows? Because people, I want to make sure people are following you around on YouTube or wherever you're at, podcasts.
Yeah, there's quite a lot. Um, yes, today I did an interview with Eddie from Barstool. Apparently, that's going to be released tomorrow on YouTube. I've not yet received the link for that, so but I'm sure you can look it up and find it. Tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., there's a podcast with a gal here locally in Richmond named Katie Beck, Catie Beck, that's coming out at 6 a.m. on like Apple and Spotify and things, where we speak at length about some of the same things we've talked about. Um, I've got interviews with Fox News Digital and People Magazine contacting me that are not yet scheduled, but are going to be arranged. Um, Tomorrow evening around 9 o'clock, I'm doing I don't know how to work it yet, but I got a friend who's been on TikTok for a while, and we're going to do a live feed where I can kind of answer all the questions that I've been answering repeatedly and try to take some of the weight off my back, because I can't continue, especially returning to work next week. This week was to be my vacation and was planned before we understood when the Netflix was coming out. So it was kind of necessary to have the week off, but my wife and I's vacation got ruined because I've been constantly just online. So I need to, for my own sake and my own mental health, kind of step back from trying to answer each and every question. So the live on TikTok tomorrow at 9 o'clock is an attempt to answer these repetitive questions about her shoes and this and that and her shirt and the things people I keep having to answer, which I've been happy to do, but I'd like for everybody to kind of understand the answers so we can stop answering those things and focus on others.
I think that's a good thing. You can just point at the answer you already gave here, or on TikTok, or in Barstool Sports. I'm looking forward to seeing that interview. That's going to be good. I bet that gets a lot of views tomorrow as well.
I hope
I
so.
want to thank you so much for being here tonight, Brad Bailey. Please follow, if people are just learning about this, follow Brad on Twitter. Check out their fundraiser as well. Thank you so much for being here tonight, Bailey. Brad Bradley. Thank you
Oh
so
man,
much for being here tonight.
ever was.
Have a great night. We got you in our prayers, and I'm real. I have hope. I have hope that this turns out good for you and your family, and we're all hoping for you. And just I hope you keep the spirit up, and anything we can do, like we're there for you, Brad.
I appreciate it very much, Mike, and thanks for your time and your interest in sharing the story. And hopefully, next time we talk, we'll have something really good to talk about.
Yes, that's what I'm hoping for. Let's hope for it. Thank you so much, Brad. Have a great rest of your night, great weekend, and look forward to seeing you on Barstool Sports and some of these other interviews this week. Thank you so much, Brad.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
We're the Young Jerks. That was Bradley. Great guy, man. Jeez, I can't believe people giving him shit. Just shows you how messed up some people are on social media. And when he said the thick skin, I get it because I'm the same way now. Like, but he shouldn't have to have thick skin. Like he didn't shoot. He's just like he's doing this. He took a week off of work for this. What a great guy. Heartbreaking. Heartbreaking for this family. Watching those 3-part series. If you haven't seen it, please go watch it on Netflix. And like I said, follow him on Twitter. If you can, kick some money in. Let's try to donate some money tonight. If you're on the fundraiser, just let him know the Young Jerk sent you. All right, tomorrow night we have a special show. We're gonna get back into some of the ATF stuff with Brian Higgins when he raided that shop. We just covered that about Toby from the Hyannis shop. We're gonna have Toby live on the show tomorrow night. I think it's at 6 p.m. with Mazza Media. It's gonna be a good show tomorrow night, talking about Brian Higgins, the ATF, when the ATF agent uh, came into his shop and did some crazy stuff. You guys already know some of the story. It's been covered, but we're gonna revisit it with Toby live on the show tomorrow. Saturday night, I have Jim Bearcat, who is running for Norfolk County DA. He's going to be live on the show for the first time on Saturday. We have some great upcoming shows. Like I said, I'm trying to take it easy lately, but I did kind of book some shows this week, so I guess I'm back. This was kind of a big one tonight. This was a tough one to talk to someone that lost their sister 23 years ago and still nothing, still no closure. I feel so bad for them. I want to help them. If we can kick in money tonight, if you can follow him, let's do whatever we can. And if you know anything, if you know anybody that knows anything about this, have them come forward. Like that's the most important thing that you could tell even over the money or the fundraising or the followers. That's all he wants. He wants to find out what's going on. He kept saying that over and over again. If there's anyone that knows anyone, please anything, please come forward. 27 years. Yeah. Imagine that. You go on a vacation, you come home without your daughter and you have no idea what happened. And everyone's saying she jumped off or committed suicide. I don't believe it. I agree with him. I do not believe that she that woman was an athlete. You know, she was had the whole rest of her life. She had just graduated college. She's on a vacation with her family in Aruba, Carousel. No one's doing themselves in. Then I've been on those types of trips with your family. You know, that's like the best time of your life. That's not when you're depressed. No way that she did that. And you can tell something is up here. And I do believe those pictures are of. I believe that those pictures are Amy, and I believe that that serviceman did see her. And I think these family members know more than anybody else. They feel it in their gut. I'm going with them. I'm not going with the idiots that are saying ridiculous stuff about it. Yeah, she did not jump or fall. I do not believe that. Someone would have heard it, and they would have found her. They would have found something. And this, the thing about Aruba and Curacao, like if you look into Aruba too, the history of Aruba, I mean, it's known for being pirate center. It was like it's where the pirates were, and they were smugglers. And even now, it's like the money laundering capital. There's a big faction where like the real Italian mafia from Italy come to Aruba and work with the the cartels, and they all money launder their money in Aruba. It's been known for a long time. And when I went there at a similar age than when Brad went on that trip with his family, with my grandparents, we went to this club called Club Visage. And it was very similar to what Carlos and Charlie's was later. And that place ended up getting shut down because it was run by mafia guys who were like the top money launderers for the Sicilian mafia, actually from Italy, and the Colombian cartel members. So like these were like the top money launderers in the nation, in the world, actually, not even the nation, in the world. And here they are in Aruba, and they own these nightclubs. And we went to that nightclub. I actually went to that disco. Like this is like a real thing in Aruba, in Curacao. It's been known for a long time. A lot of drug trade, a lot of human trafficking, a lot of money laundering, and it goes right to the top. Like the prime ministers, the crows. You look into those people; they're all connected. They're all in on it. That island is covered in drug money. And I know that some people want to say, no, 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 it's such a nice place. It is a nice place. It's beautiful. It's pretty safe, actually, for the most part, considering all that drug trade that's going on there. It's not like you have the gangsters just shooting people up, but there is some stuff going on there. And I don't care what anyone says. People want to pretend, oh, no, 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 you're being racist. You're look. That's what people say. You're looking down at these. Hey, it's reality. This happens in America. The same stuff happens in America. It's not just like it's just the islands, but we know those islands have an underworld. They've always had an underworld. They always will, and it's bad. And someone said, "Yeah, it sounds like Rhode Island." Exactly. There's certain areas that we know. Like no one from Rhode Island is denying that it used to be a mafia capital and still is. Like, come on. Like, that's the difference. It's so funny. Like, if we bash on Rhode Island, nobody's gonna say no, no. Or even like if we bash on Boston, because Boston used to have a lot of mafia where I'm from, right? Massachusetts. We had a lot of Italian and Irish mafia. No one gets mad when we say that. But you talk about the islands, all of a sudden people get very upset. It's weird. Yeah, it's not racist. You're right. It's not racist. It's not. It's ridiculous talk. The shit is real. The cartels are real. I want to thank Brad Bradley for coming on the show tonight. He was a good guest, great guest. His sister would be proud. I'm gonna say his sister is proud because I have a feeling she is still alive. I do. I feel like she's still alive. I think there's still hope, and I want the hope for the family, and I want to see that happy ending. All right, I'm gonna go watch. I want to go watch Lucky Laughlin. Lucky Laughlin's on the Canton Chronicle. This is gonna be something. You guys want to go watch the Canton Chronicle, or what are we doing tonight? There's a bunch of shows on. Where's everyone going now? Are we going to the Canton Chronicle? Some people are boycotting, John. I've been trying to stay out of it. I like John, actually. I do like John. I think some of his posts this week. I wish he hadn't posted some of the shit, but I still like him. All right, I gotta go. I'll see you soon, everybody. Definitely when Thursday night. Yeah, tomorrow night. I'll be on Thursday night. Oh, some people are watching the Broken Baker tonight. Turtle Boy's on there. I didn't know that. Yeah. You wanted me to take you to Lucky? You want me to redirect you? Oh boy. All right, I'll redirect you to Canton Chronicle. Give me a second. It's gonna take a second. Now you're gonna have to wait. Canton Chronicle YouTube. I can do that. I can do that for you guys. You know what? Hold on. It's gonna take me a second. I gotta get my YouTube up. Thursday night will be live tomorrow night. I believe it's at 6 p.m. We're gonna have Toby. He's gonna talk about when ATF Brian Higgins raided his shop. That's tomorrow night. I am gonna redirect you. Why not? Maybe John will mention us. Why am I having a hard time redirecting this? Hold on one second. I'll get it set up. There we go. All right, Canton Chronicle. Hold on. See how long it takes me to do the technology here? This would probably take Turtle Boy 2 seconds to set up. But me, it takes forever. Oh, see, he doesn't have his redirect up. After all that, and I told him to turn that on. He never turned it on. I can't redirect you. You know what I'll do? We'll just put the link in the chat. Hold on one second. He doesn't have the redirect option on, so I can't do it. But we'll post the link in the chat so we can all do it together. If I can find it. Hold on. Oh man, hold on. Maybe I should ask you guys to post it. All right, I'm just gonna post the link in the chat then. So you got it. You got it. You got the link in the chat. And Venmo. I'm just gonna check real quick, see if there's any Venmos or any of that stuff that I missed this week. I don't think I did. Hold on. Maybe I missed $10 from Barbara last night. She sent $10. Thank you, Barbara, on Venmo. But Catherine sent me $10 today and said, "For remembering the guy who said he had higher IQ than you, LOL." I'm not sure even what that means, but I'll take the $10. You're gonna have to explain that to me, Catherine. Remember the guy who said he had a higher IQ than you, LOL. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Who was that? Who was that? I don't know. Yeah, someone said what time. I believe it's still on right now. Yeah, it's like Glenn said. Mike still has another hour left. Yeah, I could take phone calls right now. You want me to take some phone calls, Glenn, and stick around for another hour? No, I'm gonna go hang out with my girlfriend. I'm gonna go have some ice cream. I think we're gonna get some ice cream tonight or something. We got 3 dogs here tonight. We're a 3 dog home. Yeah, Jerk Airlines flight has been canceled. I'm out for ice cream. All right, I'll see you guys later. Tomorrow night. Have a great night. See you tomorrow night. I think it's at 6 p.m. We'll be back. We'll see you there with Toby and Mazza. Mazza's going to be here tomorrow night as well. I sent the wrong link, you said? I'm sorry. I tried my best. John made it too hard to redirect. He's got a promo video. It's like, where's the live, John? You're right. I see how it's the wrong one. Hold on. I got the right one. United's up now. United, they're on the screen. I'll post the right link. Here's the right link, people. I'll see you over there. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you to our mod, Sarah. Thank you, MJ. Thank you, Scott McGinnis, Stephanie, and Jen O. Thank you so much to our mod team. We'll see you tomorrow night.